Everyone. In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, be advised that a notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board in Town Hall and forwarding to the officially designated newspapers that this meeting would take place at Town Hall at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, June 4th, 2024. Meeting details and the draft agenda were also posted on our Township website. Please stand to salute the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Here.
Ms. Pupis?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Sacramandi?
Here.
Mr. Stoller?
Present.
Mayor Romano?
Here.
Thank you.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
May I have a motion to approve the May 7th, 2024 regular Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? May I have a motion to approve the May 7th, 2024 special Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Ms. Prupus, you are scheduled to present a proclamation.
Whereas every day 120 Americans are killed by gun violence and more than 200 are shot and wounded, with an average of nearly 18,000 gun homicides every year. And whereas Americans are 26 times more likely to die by gun homicide than people in other high-income countries. And whereas New Jersey has 427 gun deaths every year, with a rate of 4.8 deaths per 100,000 people. A crisis that costs the state $5.3 billion each year, of which $168.9 million is paid by taxpayers. New Jersey has the 5th lowest rate of gun deaths in the US. And whereas gun homicides and assaults are concentrated in cities, with more than half of all firearm-related gun deaths in the nation occurring in 120 cities. And whereas cities across the nation, including in Millburn, are working to end the senseless violence with evidence-based solutions. And whereas protecting public safety in the communities they serve is mayor's highest responsibility. And whereas support for the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens goes hand in hand with keeping guns away from people with dangerous histories. And whereas mayors and law enforcement officers, in partnership with local violence intervention activists and resources, know their communities best, are the most familiar with local criminal activity and how to address it, and are best positioned to understand how to keep their citizens safe. Whereas gun violence prevention is more important than ever as we see an increase in firearm homicides and non-fatal shootings across the country, increased calls to domestic violence hotlines, and an increase in city gun violence. And whereas in January 2013, Adia Pendleton was tragically shot and killed at age 15 on June 7, 2024, to recognize the 27th birthday of Adia Pendleton, born June 2, 1997. People across the United States will recognize National Gun Violence Awareness Day and wear orange in tribute to Adia Pendleton and other victims of gun violence and the loved ones of those victims. And whereas the idea was inspired by a group of Hadia's friends who asked their classmates to commemorate her life by wearing orange. They chose this color because hunters wear orange to announce themselves to other hunters when out in the woods. And orange is the color that symbolizes the value of human life. And whereas anyone can join the campaign by pledging to wear orange on June 7th, the first Friday in June 2024, to help raise awareness about gun violence. And whereas by wearing orange on June 7, 2024, Americans will raise awareness about gun violence and honor the lives of gun violence victims and survivors. And whereas we renew our commitment to reduce gun violence and pledge to do all we can to keep firearms out of the hands of people who should not have access to them. and encourage responsible gun ownership to help keep our families and communities safe. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Mayor Romano of the Township of Milburn declares the first Friday in June, June 7th, 2024, to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day. I encourage all the citizens to support their local communities' efforts to prevent the tragic effects of gun violence and to honor and value human lives. Signed, Annette Romano, Milburn Township Mayor.
Thank you so much. Thank you to the mayor and the township committee. My name is Diane Nelson. I'm a township resident and a volunteer with Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. I'm here with my fellow volunteers from the Essex County chapter. I'm happy to say that this is the 7th year that we're accepting the Gun Violence Day Awareness Proclamation here in Milburn. I want to thank you for your continued support, for wearing orange, and for agreeing to light up the town hall in orange tonight. We wear orange again this year because of the continued gun violence in our country, and also because we're determined to elevate the voices of survivors. I just want to highlight a few statistics from the CDC and FBI. Guns are the leading cause of death for US children by homicide, suicide, and unintentional shootings. Tragically, 2023 saw the highest number of unintentional shootings by children since 2015. Every month, on average, 57 women are shot to death by an intimate partner in the United States. Nearly 6 out of every 10 gun deaths are suicides. And children between the ages of 10 and 14 have the fastest growing suicide rate of any group over the last decade, an increase of 146%. Guns are being stolen from cars at triple the rate they were 10 years ago. In 2022, on average, at least one firearm was stolen from a car every 9 minutes. Gun theft is a significant source of guns, which then end up used in crimes. To do our part, we focus a lot on secure storage and on red flag laws to try and reduce these numbers. We should not have to live in fear that gunfire can ring out at any moment. We'll continue to educate, raise awareness, organize, advocate, and rally for safer communities. By uniting with us in our efforts to end gun violence, by issuing this proclamation, together we can build a future free from all types of gun violence, gun suicides, gun homicides, unintentional shootings, and intimate partner shootings. We want to invite you and the community to join us, along with our partner organizations, this Friday, June 7th, from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. for a Wear Orange rally on the Summit Village Green. I would like to also present the committee with a handout about gun violence in New Jersey and with flyers advertising the rally. Thank you again so much for your support.
Thank you. As Diane mentioned, the lights outside of Town Hall will be orange tonight, and you'll see that when we leave. And thank you for bringing the ribbons. Can we take like 2 minutes to take a group photo since we have our orange on? Would you mind? Reports. please provide reports on the committees that you are liaison to, and I am going to start. We had a very informative public information session with the police department last week. I am looking forward to our community policing division to roll out at the end of the summer. A special thanks to Chief Gilfetter, Detective Lieutenant Tavares, Sergeant Barbosa, and Detective Salime for a very informative session. We started our home security assessment program also last week, which will be under the umbrella of the Community Police Division. More information and registration is on the Township website, and the video is on our YouTube channel. And Art Advisory Committee held their annual awards ceremony last month. The students received over $3,000 in gifts, art supplies, framing, and gift cards that were donated by Jerry's Artists Outlets in West Orange. 9 students were honored this year, and I want to thank the library for hosting. Each year, the Art Advisory Committee views AP Junior and Seniors portfolios before selecting the award recipients. So I wanted to congratulate the students and thank the Art Advisory Committee for another successful event. That's all I have. Deputy Mayor?
Sure. So the Environmental Commission had an info session with landscapers to talk about the potential phase out of gas-powered leaf blowers. This was a very helpful and informative info session. The commissioners were able to hear from the landscapers firsthand about how they have suffered in other towns that have instituted year-round bans. They explained in intimate detail how banning the leaf blowers in the fall and the spring would be detrimental to their business and to the town customers. You know, I think it was important for the commissioners to hear this before they propose any changes in legislation. On the plus side, the landscapers did seem a lot more amenable to a June, July, and August ban, because apparently they don't really need to use high-powered leaf blowers during that time. So we'll see what the commission comes back with in terms of recommendations, but it was a very informative meeting. The Zoning Code Examination Committee adjourned their last meeting, but we have been making progress throughout the year, and there's some additional ordinances that are going to be read tonight with regards to zoning changes. And the planning board at the last meeting was a brief meeting. They're going to be doing a new set of bylaws, and that'll be something that'll be discussed there tomorrow. So if you're interested, feel free to attend. That's it. Thanks.
No reports.
Sure. Recreation Committee. Fall program registrations opening this week includes rec soccer, flag football, girls volleyball, and cross country. The 4-miler race was held on Sunday with 130 registered runners. Congratulations to Tom Ganella and Sophia Van Roon, who were the overall champions. And there's a Yankee bus trip tomorrow. It's sold out, but they may have a few extra tickets if anybody wants to go. For the Special Improvement District, Girls Night Out is June 6th, pending the weather, I guess. 400 people have already pre-registered for this event. Open Streets program, Open Streets for the Town Hall Plaza Pedestrian Mall this summer. If you're a business or community organization and want to host an event, please email the CID. BOE. The Milburn Township School District Board of Education has initiated a search for a successor superintendent of schools. It's open to all stakeholders. There's going to be 4 phases. We will put up, if you want to participate, there's a Zoom link, and there's also another stakeholder survey you can fill out. Joint fields, high school fields, DEP is scheduled to have a determination on the flood hazard area in that area back behind the football field, behind the baseball diamond, and looking at various options, such as potentially turfing those fields. Field rentals and use. The Recreation Department and Athletic Department have worked diligently, as we were discussing many times earlier this year, optimizing the scheduling, and so far that's worked out fantastic. Nothing to report on the emergency dispatch. Flood mitigation, it's been a while since we've had an update there, so I'll just give you a quick update. On the West Branch, we've officially secured support from the County of Essex and City of Orange, and now we've submitted the application for the 2.5 million. So we're waiting on that. We've also secured agreement from Lakeside Village on the removal of sediment and debris from the river, which was causing us a problem. East Branch, we're working to secure 11 easements needed from residents to move forward with the drainage project. On home elevation, 3 residents have applied for home elevation. Have they received that yet, Alex? They did receive it? All right, fantastic, that was confirmed. Sewer backups, changing the ownership of certain sewer lines have given Milburn actually direct control of those sewer lines, which gives us much more ability to solve those issues. And then the Gilbert pump, since the upgrades were completed earlier this year, it's been operating flawlessly. Van Winkle, which is the Glenwood area, the flood mitigation has identified the potential solution to expand that detention area near Chatham Road, which will reduce the frequency and extent of flooding in Glenwood. And then just on other notes, other things, Madeline Hawes, age 95, from Bunchers, passed away on May 31st, 2024. Funeral service will be at the funeral home at 10 a.m. At Holly. I talked to, I shopped a long time at Bunchers over the years. I talked to Madeline and or to Marlene, and she said that her granddaughter called Gigi, which is what she went by as the grandmother of Milburn Avenue. So we're all sad that she's passed away. In lieu of flowers, they want you to make any donations to the Paper Mill Playhouse, etc. That's it.
Thank you. Commissioner Cole?
Yeah, well, Deputy Mayor Suckerman, you already covered the planning board. I would just like to echo what the mayor said about the meeting with the police. If you were unable to attend, I would definitely encourage you to watch the video. There were a lot of crime prevention tips that they went over, and that certainly be helpful. I was also glad to see that they are instituting the home audit program, which I had raised several months ago. At the library, there's a ton of events going on this month for Pride Month. And in fact, we will be raising the flag tomorrow in honor of Pride Month here at Town Hall tomorrow at 4 o'clock. So I would urge you to attend.
Mr. McDonald?
Just a few brief reports. Just to add to the report on the home assessment program, that started on Thursday, May 30th, and we've already had 96 people sign up for that. So they'll be busy. Just a reminder to residents, the President's Cup is on June 24th. If you're familiar with this, it's on a Monday. It is in the evening, and it will close all of the streets of the downtown. But it's a great event, run by the Chamber of Commerce. It's a great 5K. But just be aware of that date and that Monday night that traffic will be impacted in the downtown. Just a quick update on Fairfield Drive. I know that's been on the minds of some. The JCP&L has finally finished their work. We will have our contractor out on Saturday, June 8th to finish curb work, and then milling and paving of Fairfield Drive will take place either later in the week of June 12th or the following week, June 17th. And lastly, just as it's come up a few times, just want to remind residents that if you'd like to report a street light out, you have to do so directly to JCP&L. They're responsible for the streetlights in town and replacing any outages. We do have information on our website. We just put out a Facebook post on it as well. And there's a link under the How Do I section in case you need to report a streetlight outage in your area. That's it.
Thank you. Public comment. Oh, I'm sorry.
Good evening, Mayor. Thank you. So tonight, I'm going to give a fair share housing update as there's been some significant event that has taken place. I'm going to advise the public as to where we stand on our fair share housing. There's been no further comment from the governing body as we're still in the midst of litigation. We're still trying to figure out what our strategy is going to be going forward. But I do, in transparency, want to give the public all the information available to it. I know there's some Oprah requests out there for the reports that were submitted. Those Oprah requests should be fulfilled shortly. They're going to be approved. These reports will go out to the public, and I understand that Mr. Banish's report has already been made public. I'm not sure how that was made public, but I heard that it's out there. So, so as everybody who's been following it recalls, the court, we tried to move off the DPW site, the 9 Main Street site, and the court allowed the township to provide an alternative site analysis. The township suggested lot 19, where we would build 29 affordable family houses and 14 workforce housing. Also lot 9, which would be 67 units, which would be comprised of 46 affordable family units and 21 workforce units. Our township planner, Graham Topology, provided a report to the court, and we did an analysis, and the analysis provided the problems with the DPW site, the levels of contamination, and how much contamination we think is potentially there, and removing all the soil, the potential impacts that it could have on New Jersey Transit, because moving all that soil could have potential impacts. We went through that we have DPW located there, and the inability to identify a feasible site to move our DPW and all that's involved in that. Also, our emergency response, as the public is aware, the DPW site is used at times for our first responders if there's an emergency in downtown to congregate there, and how important that is to the township. We also raised that the ingress and egress is in the 500-year floodplain, and there may be some issues in ingress and egress. As everybody knows, the traffic coming in and out, and there's no access onto Essex, it's all onto Main, would be a major issue at that site. And also just a long-term quality of life, given the PSE&G substations there and some of the other things that surround that property. And the idea is this committee was determined to meet its affordable need and want to put the 75 units in the downtown. They just wanted to put them in a better place. And they identified 2 additional sites. And we also identified the benefits of those 2 sites, which were the improved ingress and egress onto those sites, the reduced likelihood of contamination, and the workforce housing. The workforce housing is actually interesting. You know, it's an important aspect, and I think this governing body really took time and really was interested in having workforce housing be a part of the plan. It made these developments inclusionary and not exclusionary, which we think eliminates some of potential stigma that could be associated with exclusionary housing. And workforce housing allows people to work and live in the township of Milburn. It has a higher income level. This was something that the committee thought was important. It's kind of where the state is headed. And we thought, you know, the benefits and these issues we laid out with the DPW site were objectively a better plan, and while still meeting our affordable housing obligations. So we submitted those reports. RPM, the developer, and Fair Share Housing submitted reports also. They didn't disagree with a lot of what the township said, but they felt that the 9 Main Street project was a better project. It was further down the line. It had already been planned out. And there were rebuttal reports also. Obviously, all those will be overboard and available to the public. But ultimately, the special master was to make a determination by June 1st. And his report came out on May 31st. And his report was sort of contrary to everything that the township was asking for. His report says, after review of the submission of parties, I recommend that Milburn be required to continue with the redevelopment of 9 Main Street for 75 affordable units. In addition, the special master found, I know there was some public debate over how to remediate the site. There was a cap. There was also, I know, a public forum where it was suggested that we remove all the soil and replace it. The special master is recommending the court order that just a cap be put in place. As to the DPW site, the special master found that we knew about this from the beginning. It's too late to raise the issue. It doesn't really solve the problem, but just that it was too late to raise the issue and we're kind of stuck. He even suggests that we could use these alternative sites for DPW location, which we know isn't realistic or feasible. He then suggests that those of you who have been following closely, I know a lot of you have been to a lot of the meetings and have seen us, reject the redevelopment agreement. He recommends the court order us to immediately pass the redevelopment agreement so the RPM project can move forward. And that's basically what he found. So to sum it up, the special master found that that the court should require the Township of Milburn to move forward with the 9 Main Street project, and determined that was more feasible and would happen faster than the alternative sites. We disagree with a lot of what is in the special master's report. We think that some things factually are incorrect. We also think overall it doesn't make sense when you could have the same amount of affordable units with the addition of workforce units in a better location without having to move your DPW site at a cheaper cost. Again, and the locations are even that more, they're closer to downtown, they have greater access, at least the other site to New Jersey Transit. It's kind of confusing, and I use that word kind of silly in a silly way. It's not confusing. We don't understand how anybody reading the 3 reports could come up with the idea that the DPW site is superior to our alternative analysis. But that is a special master. He was appointed by the court. The settlement agreement provides for this exact situation. If the township determines that 9 Main Street, the DPW site was not going to move forward, the court is allowed to appoint a special master. The special master to evaluate all the sites and make a determination report back to court. We have no reason to believe that the court is not going to follow the special master's report and order this. We don't know when that's going to happen or how it's going to take place. Fair Share Housing submitted a request today to the court, requesting the court bring us in for a case management conference. We believe at that case management conference, the court is likely to order this remedy. We're obviously going to ask the court for a few things that day, which I'm not going to get into now. But that's kind of the state of affairs in Fair Share Housing. The committee's been fully advised. We're reviewing our options, and in the spirit of transparency, we'll continue to update the public as decisions are made and we go forward. I'm sure some people in the public might have some thoughts on the special master's report, but I've advised this committee that we're not going to comment at this point as this ongoing litigation. We were surprised by this report. In full transparency, we walked these sites with the special master. We walked the DPW site. Me, Deputy Mayor Sacramento, committee member Stoller, and Alex, we walked the sites with the special master. He seemed impressed with the alternate sites. He seemed to understand the issues with the DPW site. He understood that a lot of traffic moves through the back of that DPW site from Township. So we were kind of surprised by this report. I think surprise is an understatement. But again, we're evaluating all our options. And the one thing I can say is the committee is committed to its affordable housing obligations. This isn't an end around of its affordable housing obligations. They just want to make sure when they do it, it's done right and done to the benefit of the residents of Milburn and the new residents of Milburn who will be coming in. So that's my report on Fair Share Housing. I don't have much of any other updates. If the committee has any questions for me, I'm happy to answer.
I'll just add that for ease, we will add that document to the township's affordable housing page, so everyone has access to it.
Thank you, Mayor. And I apologize to everyone. I have some today's election day, and I have some election obligations. So my associate, Rich Birch, is going to be stepping up on the days, but I appreciate it. And I thank the committee. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, public comment. When invited to speak to offer your comments, please come to the lectern, clearly state your name and whether you are a Milburn resident and/or property or business owner. Please do not provide your full address, seeing our meetings are recorded and are readily available to the public. For the convenience of our community, there is a remote option. If you called in and would like to comment, please press *6 now. If you are attending by computer or electronic device, please click the raise hand button and be sure your video is on when you comment. All members of the public wishing to speak will be put into the queue to address the committee. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers shall limit their comments to 1 3-minute session. You will be prompted when there is 30 seconds remaining. A reminder that this is not a time for a dialogue or to debate a matter, and this is a time during our business meeting for the public to offer comments. I will now open the public comment period.
Good evening, Mike Becker, resident for 49 years. I think he said you can't comment on anything in this. But I'm nervous because I'm not a lawyer, but I read this and it sounds like not only were we unsuccessful in convincing them to move to new spots, they're saying they're taking the initiative, if I read this right, and saying, oh, those new spots, that's great. That'll help us get even more development. So that's got me concerned. You can't comment on it.
Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Jeffrey Feld, I live in the poet section. What a few interesting, like 10 days. Found out no one's above the law. The misdemeanors can be elevated into felonies. It's my custom, I submitted various questions prior to this meeting. I'm still waiting for answers from last meeting's written questions. And it seems like we have a series of oops situations. Like I think the public's entitled to know what happened, why the agenda was delayed to be posted, why the bill list didn't get posted till Monday. Because when you look at the bill list, there's an account that says celebration account. And this goes back to the budget process. Who has oversight of that celebration account? Is that an account that the township local government body has, or the rec department, or Alex has discretion over that fund? And how much has been funded for that? Also on the bill list, there seems to be a payment for mediation for the High Center. And I think that's about the second or third payment. The reason I mention that, on Thursday, and I'm surprised our municipal attorney didn't raise this, the township filed a cross motion in the Bear Properties case seeking to litigate and not to mediate the Bear Properties action. I filed a response of pleadings on Monday. This morning, the township requested opportunity to file a reply brief, and I'm looking forward to how they rebut the certification of Ms. Urso. When I went to vote today at Gerald Park, there was a banner announcing when the June concert series is going to start in July. There was a concert on last Thursday that wasn't listed. Was that sponsored by the rec department or some other party? Or was that just another ploy to get votes? Because it was not listed, it really wasn't advertised. Importance of public notice. I'm glad we talked about the SID, because last week, I think it was Friday, like a half-page ad appeared in the Star Ledger regarding the Hoboken SID and how much they worked. And that forced me to do an investigation of the Hoboken SID. And I find out that when I talked about last time, the feasibility study, they had a 2-year feasibility study process. We had none. And I think it's time to step back and analyze what I've been saying about, the viability of this entity. In addition, one question has to be answered. We have been hearing about, weaponization of judicial process. How a municipal complaint was filed by our former mayor against a vocal dissenter was issued by our local municipal court.
Thank you,
Without a dated and executed probable cause
Mr.
finding.
Feld, thank you.
I will be back and you will answer some questions.
Thank you.
Comment was made when the subject of the flood mitigation committee came up regarding what is in fact the Fandango Dam and Fandango Pond, which is along the path of the west branch of the Rahway River. And I'd like to suggest to the Historic Preservation Committee and to the township that area be considered as a historic site and designated as a historic site, and the dam be protected as a historic piece of Millburn history. At one point, there were 9 dams, according to the Millburn Historical Society in the township. And the last one to exist was the Fandango Paper Mill, which is located on the property now occupied by the Lakeside Condominium Association. I know that's private land,
But currently, in the transfer of ownership of the dam way back when, I guess the dam was allowed to own a piece of the river. The ownership transferred to the condominium association, and now we have a private entity in our township that owns a piece of a river, a tributary that runs through our town, which is fundamentally wrong and makes no sense at all. Now, I know that Mr. McDonald has negotiated with them, and they have an obligation to clean out that pond. But beyond that, it's a historic location. It could be a scenic location, and if there was a way to provide some kind of access for the townspeople to see that and enjoy it, I think that would be something that would be of interest, certainly of interest to me. But I think it's an opportunity to take ownership of the river that we should own. It's through our town. Nobody should own a piece of our river. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Jean Pasternak, resident. I think first thing I'd like to say is thank you to all 5 of you for having the courage to vote against the dump project and to stand up against, I know, difficult forces after something was put in place years before that the town spoke loudly against. 65% of our voters last year said, stop this. And I give all of you a lot of credit for the strength that you showed in dealing with that process. I know Ben and Frank both spent a lot of time on this. I'm sure Alex as well, looking at these alternatives. I think this is a slap in the face of our township and the hard work that all of you put in and the courage that you showed. So I'm standing here before you representing our township residents who spoke really loudly about this. And I hope that you'll maintain your courage, that you will not stand down, that you will not let their fear tactics and their pushiness and harassment and whatever else they're doing with this report. The special master showed he has conflicts. I was at a hearing where he spoke and talked about how the project on the whatever it's called, the wetlands off of JFK is the Woodmont project is actually the best project in northern New Jersey. Like, how can someone be objective when they're cheerleading for one of the projects in our fair share settlement agreement? So I hope all these things will be considered before you make your decision about what you're about to do next, okay? And the other thing that I wanted to say is, I hope our citizens realize that what you do, who you vote for, makes a big difference. This problem starts at the very top of our state with the governor and the legislators who just doubled down on this whole movement to force housing, not affordable housing, overdevelopment onto this whole state. And we have no say. You can see it in this silliness that's going on, and that's really going to affect all of our lives. So I really hope that our citizens will stand up against this and support you in whatever efforts you want to make to push back. Thank you.
Anyone else in the room? No one online? I will now close public. Okay.
Good evening, Perry Urso, 514, Upper Milburn Avenue, property owner, business owner. April 15th, 24, there was a case management hearing where Attorney Feld recommended that the attorneys meet to discuss the case prior to a mediation. The township attorneys who represented Mr. Cantor stated that his firm just received the documents from the former township attorney. Additionally, he stated loud and clear that the township has no interest to mediate. Is this true? And does this sound like an attorney looking at the best interest of the town? This brings me to the bill list this evening that's attached to your agenda. Check made payable to the Weingarten Law Firm, described as legal services for mediation fee, reference the Kai Center. Is the township mediating yet another $700,000 plus settlement with the Kai Center? I respectfully ask this body, who and why does this township committee, just like our prior administration, choose to litigate rather than mediate a case who is seeking no damages, unlike the Kai Center, who has in the past? On May 7th, Attorney Feld met with Attorney Cantor at his office. Attorney Cantor, B.A. McDonald, and two of Cantor's associates were present. This was a scheduled meeting prior to a mediation to get both attorneys up on speed. Let me state that this was not to mediate where the judge has not yet appointed a mediation or a mediator. Attorney Feld presented during that meeting a settlement to be presented to our fellow TC members. Sadly, there was no counter, which is outrageous. So who on this TC instructed Attorney Cantor to deny the Bear property offer and recommend to move forward with litigation? Was it an unanimous vote 4-1, 5 across the board, a 3-2 vote? Or is the township attorney or B.A. McDonald making decisions without this body's approval? I respectfully wait for your answers. Thank you and have a nice evening.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, just wait 1 second.
Hi, good evening, David Oliphant, resident of Short Hills. Mayor and Town Council, I wish to briefly bring up an issue related to the proposed historic districting of Marywood, Nottingham that has been tabled by the HPC. I'm going to just be brief because I'm aware that I believe, Frank, you are the liaison, so I'm sure you've done your due diligence in bringing up to speed the mayor and the fellow TC members. So if what I'm going to say is just a reiteration of what you know, please forgive me. Approximately 3 months ago, back in March, the Marywood Nottingham residents, approximately 153, received written communication from the HPC chairperson. This was official written communication on letterhead stating that the HPC had heard the concerns of the residents and that HPC was going to bring a motion to the table to basically, I'm paraphrasing, and you can read it for yourself, bring a motion to the table to end, terminate, kill, if you will, the historic districting of Marywood, Nottingham, and in fact, invited everyone to attend the April meeting when that was going to take place. It's my understanding that that never happened. That never happened in April. That never happened in May. There were meetings of HPC, but it just never happened. So I believe that there should be some accountability for this official written communication. The HPC needs to do what they said they were going to do. Anything else would be a dereliction of duties. It is my understanding that perhaps you are proposing a new HPC ordinance. Fabulous. That doesn't diminish the optics, that doesn't diminish the written communication, and what's necessary is accountability, and they need to follow through with what's been communicated. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good evening, Jerry Kung, Short Hills resident. I know you're not allowed to comment about the ongoing litigation, but just wanted to flag some issues in Banish's report. You probably already know about them. So just very quickly, Banish cites a report by David Kinsey. I believe David Kinsey is the one who came up with these astronomical numbers for unmet need, who claims that the 9 Main Street site is currently used as a storage and recycling yard, not an essential service. I believe this is incorrect. The site is also used for the salt dome and refueling and parking of essential DPW vehicles. Alex can correct me if I'm wrong. He also states that while site remediation could slow the construction process, 9 Main Street would ultimately create units sooner than starting on the alternative sites. This statement, Banish, who cites Kinsey, this statement was made with no evidence at all. Normally if you want to make a claim, you back it up with evidence, and Banish is citing a report that has no evidence. Banish cites Joshua Bowers, Fair Share Housing attorney, who claims that the alternative sites will require relocation of parking spaces, which is not the case at 9 Main Street. However, I believe Mr. Bowers is incorrect because the 9 Main Street site would require relocation of the parking spaces in lot 16. Those are the spaces right outside the DPW. Mr. Bowers also says that the type of soil contamination is typical of DPW facilities and can be remediated appropriately. I believe this is also incorrect because the particular 9 Main Street site has a history of contaminated soil dug up from around underground leaking fuel storage tanks around municipal sites, dumped onto the site. Unless Mr. Bowers wants to present evidence of typical of other DPW facilities, I don't think he should be making that statement. At the end of the report, Mr. Banish states that while Milburn does not know of a need to remediate contamination at these alternate sites, the existence of historic fill along the railroad may impact these alternate sites as it does at 9 Main Street. The contamination history of 9 Main Street is much more severe than at the other sites. I suspect it's much more severe. We haven't done the testing at the other sites, but maybe it might make sense to do testing at all 3 of the sites and do a comparison. Just a suggestion. And I do want to commend the township for all of their hard work, providing an alternative plan that not only provides the 75 units of affordable housing, but also provides 34 units of much needed workforce housing, which is also known as middle income housing. It's best practice that's also used in other states. So I commend the committee for coming up with that plan because, in the spirit of inclusivity, as Attorney Cantor stated earlier, that's a much better way of doing affordable housing. And I think Milburn, I have 20 seconds still. Oh, that's okay. I think it'll also help mitigate any potential stigma that Attorney Cantor also mentioned related to income segregation. And I think it's just better to separate it out instead of having one large building. As mentioned, traffic up Old Short Hills Road is a huge problem, and these 2 sites would actually allow ingress and egress onto other streets. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? May I have a motion to close public comment?
So
Great.
Okay.
So, yeah, you got one?
Yeah.
And a
Second, all in favor?
Yeah, yes.
Aye. Okay, the township committee will now consider consent agenda resolutions.
Yeah,
Oh. I'm sorry.
okay, no worries.
Mayor, if I could just speak before, I just want to recommend that we don't speak about the Bear Properties litigation as it's ongoing litigation. So I just wanted to make the committee aware of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Elephant. So thank you for your comments tonight. They were largely the same as the email you sent to the entire township committee earlier in the week. I responded to that email, so I will reiterate my response. The letter that was sent by the chair of the HPC indicated that the chair of the HPC would be putting forward a motion to de-recommend the Marywood Nottingham district as a historic district, thereby stopping the process. Unfortunately, there were some extenuating circumstances that prevented the chair from being in attendance at that meeting. The person acting as the chair took it upon themselves to decide not to read that resolution. They felt that it would be better for the entire committee if they heard it directly from the chair, because again, the letter simply said the chair would make the recommendation. That doesn't mean it's guaranteed to be voted on and accepted by all of the committee members. So I think in vein of trying to get the best possible chances of that moving forward, they waited until the chair could be present. I also pointed out in my email response to you that we have a new HPC ordinance, and I believe the first read on that ordinance is tonight. It's my understanding that when the new ordinance goes into effect, assuming it passes, then the process for Mayor with Nottingham would have to start over. So the tabling and untabling is sort of a moot point, because if they wanted to try and move that forward, they would need to do so and start the process over, because there's now going to be a different procedure that has to be followed. So hopefully that will give you some comfort. I'm sure you'll have more comfort once you see the actual resolution or the ordinance and it's passed. Ms. Urso, I would love to answer your question, but I've been advised by counsel not to. So unfortunately, my hands are tied there. Ms. Pasternak, I agree. I think that, while I'm not going to talk specifically about our legislation, I think you make some very salient points about how a lot of this affordable housing overdevelopment seems to be pushed down on us from state level officials. You're absolutely correct about that. I know that, Mayor Romano and I met with our members of Assembly, and we tried to explain to them the challenges that towns like Milburn were having. We did the same with our state senator. Unfortunately, our two Assemblywomen voted for the new affordable housing bill that was in the Assembly. Quite honestly, we feel that this was a mistake, and we had advised them to, try to get changes made to that bill, because it takes an already bad process, and in my personal opinion, it makes it all that much worse. In my opinion, I think if we want to see changes at a state level, we need residents to start getting upset and communicating their feelings with those state level officials. And there's also a gubernatorial election next year. I would encourage everyone that's going to be voting in that to really do a deep dive on all of the candidates. And if affordable housing is a big issue for you, perhaps keep that in mind when you vote next year. Mr. Bambera, I would love to hear more about that dam that you'd like to be declared historic. I'd suggest that perhaps you come to a historic preservation meeting, or reach out to some members of the Historic Preservation Committee to see if that's something that's possible or should be pursued. Mr. Feld, as far as the agenda, we'll let Alex answer why that was delayed. The agenda that I get in draft form was the same as the one that was posted, so I would venture to guess it was some sort of clerical error, but we'll let Alex explain that. Let's see here. Last Thursday's concert, I agree. I've had many people say to me that they didn't think that that was very well publicized. So perhaps Alex could explain why that wasn't publicized as much as some other events that we have coming up in town. I'm assuming it was just an oversight of some kind. And also, finally, I am interested in finding out more about this municipal complaint that was filed against a dissenting resident. I think there should be an investigation. It's my understanding that the local police department did not want to pursue this complaint, but the elected official somehow managed to get a prosecutor in Newark to move forward with the complaint. And it was ultimately dropped, but I do think there should be some sort of investigation as to whether that was politically motivated. It certainly has the appearance of being politically motivated, but I think there should be some investigation because politicians should not be able to weaponize the police or the justice system to stifle dissent. That's just wrong, and we absolutely should not be doing that in Milburn. Not to say that happened here, but I think an investigation is warranted. And Mr. Becker, so the law, as I understand it, for affordable housing specifically says that towns can't be forced to give away land. Now, the reason that that sometimes happens is towns enter into these settlement agreements and they voluntarily choose to give away land or at a reduced price or entirely in order to get immunity. So we'll see what happens next round, but unless the township body decides to proactively give that land away, I think it would be difficult for the state to force us to part with that land. But again, that's something we'll look into and take into consideration for the next round. That's it. Thanks.
I just want to address the HPC issue. So prior to getting the email from Mr. Elefant, I had no idea that any of that occurred. And I'm just talking to you because you're the liaison. But I think that while we do have this resolution on tonight, I think that because something came out, and I understand that, so Allison missed a few meetings.
It wasn't a few, there were extenuating circumstances. She had 3 deaths in the family that happened very close together. Yes, it's a very unusual set of circumstances, and I think it'll be on the agenda tomorrow, and I'm certain it'll probably be dealt with then.
Great, so this
On Thursday.
on
Thursday's meeting,
Thursday,
yes.
seems like Allison's, that Allison's gonna
It's
present it to
it's
the-
my understanding that that's what's gonna happen,
Awesome.
and if she doesn't, I will make sure it gets presented anyway.
Oh, right, so there's no issue. Great, all right, I got nothing more.
Sure. I'm just gonna address the comments that Gene and Mike and Jerry made. I'm gonna be a lot more blunt than Mr. Saccomandi was. I'm not gonna be silly. What happened to our town? We presented a much more plausible project, both financially and in timing, and better for our township. We got to communicate the project, we got to discuss it with the special master, we walked the properties. And I am dumbfounded by the report that was provided back. To Gene's point, there's something amiss going on in our government. There were things that are happening that we're not controlling, that's not being done by good financial or timing or good decision making. We put our best foot forward, we put the properties, there was literally no reason for it not to be accepted. Beside the fact of what I want to say is it should have been accepted. I think while we're talking about some investigations, we should investigate professional misconduct for this town and how we got to this point.
Yeah, here.
Because we should not be at this point, folks. Frank and I ran on full transparency. We've given full transparency. And I'll be remiss if I didn't say we stand behind our affordable housing obligations as a township. That is not what's at question here. It's what's being done in a manner that's consistent with sensible planning. I promise you from this day that we will not give up. I will not give up. I want to thank Frank. I want to thank Tara, Annette, and Michael for the support that we've band together to peel back what's actually happening. And this is not a Milburn Township problem. This is a state problem, folks. Your legislatures have failed us. That's probably to the extent that Richard wants me to speak about this. I'm just dumbfounded, shocked by that presentation, and we will do everything we can to prevent. We'll do whatever we can. Thank you.
I don't have anything to add.
The only thing I want to add, the rec concert that took place last week was not part of the summer concert series. It was a special concert for the anniversary of Taylor Park. As to why it wasn't advertised as much, I don't have an answer for that, but I just wanted to clarify that. Do you want to comment?
No, I don't have any comments.
Is the first rec department summer concert this Thursday? Did you announce that? Did you announce it? You did, okay.
So just to, I guess, comment on some of the questions that have been asked of me. First and foremost, the rec concert for the 100th anniversary of Taylor Park, that was heavily advertised on the rec department Facebook page, but did not receive a similar communication on the township channels, not for any particular reason. Just it's something that when the rec department receives their own Facebook page, which is new and different, we've got to do a little bit of a better job of cross-pollination of those communications. But it was heavily advertised on the rec department page. So just wanted to let the committee know that I think the first communication went out on May 17th on their page. But again, recognizing that it wasn't heavily communicated on the township's pages. So as far as the agenda goes, sometimes things happen, and they are not posted immediately at 4:00 on a Friday every time. It's not held for any particular reason. Sometimes there's clerical error, delays. Sometimes there's just delays in getting the materials. Sometimes there's a whole host of things that take place in putting an agenda together and getting it out to the public. And so sometimes, they do take a little bit longer, or it's missed. It's not held for any particular reason. So I'm not sure. Certainly, it's been pretty consistent. Otherwise, the question wouldn't get raised. So I think that we just got to recognize that sometimes these things happen. The other matter I'd just like to address is that I am communicating with the vocal citizen that had, in this whole situation with the court and the subpoena, I've been communicating with that individual and their attorney to provide some information as it relates to the court and as it relates to how this transpired. The point is that a complaint was made. As soon as that complaint is made, it is sent to the presiding judge in Newark, who then makes the decision regarding probable cause. I have not yet responded to the third inquiry about the situation, but I will certainly do that, in which I'm going to suggest setting up a meeting with our municipal judge so that there can be added clarification to the process in which municipalities have to go through, especially when there's a conflict, because the whole purpose is to avoid what is being insinuated up here today. The process is there so that we don't have any conversation about political influence or weaponizing police departments or anything. It's something that I take very seriously and want to make sure that everybody understands that that does not happen, and that the process went through what it needed to go through so that people up here that are ordinary citizens as well in this community can make a complaint if they need to. And so I'd be happy to set up a meeting with the municipal judge so that process can be understood a little bit better.
Thank you. Consent agenda resolution items. Are there any comments from the committee in regard to any items listed on the consent agenda? May I have a motion to approve resolution 24-152 through resolution 24-156, which are listed on the consent agenda?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second,
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Coleman,
yes.
Ms. Purpose.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy,
Yes.
Mr. Stoller,
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know this was part of the consent agenda. Alex, weren't you gonna talk about 24-153? That's the.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
You're going, yeah. So this is a situation that I've communicated to the Township Committee regarding a property that did work without a permit, ended up impacting a sanitary sewer pipe. The township had to do some emergency repairs, as well as while we were in the ground, we made some additional repairs. I want to be fair to what occurred, in that we did go beyond what was necessary to make sure that we were getting the most bang for our buck while we were there in terms of repairing things that needed to be done. We have sent a letter from our attorney to the homeowner. We will be pursuing both insurance as well as a possible assessment against property if necessary, if insurance does not determine a claim is able to be made or subrogated against their insurance. But just to be clear, like, while we are authorizing this money because the contractor needs to be paid for the work that they did, we are pursuing that money as well from them.
So we expect to be partially reimbursed for the amount that was really subject to what they did, and then over and above what we did, obviously, we're not asking.
Correct. That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any comments from the committee in regard to resolution 24-157? May I have a motion to approve resolution 24-157?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second,
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Coleman,
yes.
Ms. Purpose,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy,
Yes.
Mr. Stoller,
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano.
Yes.
Thank you.
Committee, when purpose, you are scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2678-24.
I'd like to present an ordinance entitled Ordinance 2678-24, ordinance amending and supplementing the Township of Milburn Development Regulations and Zoning Ordinance. Alex, would you like to explain this?
Yeah, just briefly, this is just a revision to the applications for both the zoning board and planning board. It actually combines the applications to provide a more concise and inclusive application for both boards in the event that there is some crossover or necessity there. It is a process that is utilized in other communities. It was recommended by the zoning subcommittee.
I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with the law in the item and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, July 16, 2024.
May I have a second?
Second,
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Coleman,
yes.
Ms. Purpose.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy,
Yes.
Mr. Stoller,
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano.
Yes. Committeeman Stoll, you are scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2679-24.
Sure. I would like to present an ordinance entitled Ordinance 2679-24, ordinance amending and supplementing the Township of Milburn Development Regulations and Zoning Ordinance. This is a master plan reexamination update that seeks to protect the character and establish residential neighborhoods and encourage land use and development at an appropriate scale and density. So we seek to provide for development and zoning definitions that are clear and facilitate efficient land use administrations, much more for transparency. I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with law in the item and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, July 16th, 2024.
May I have a second?
Second.
A roll call vote, please.
Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Ms. Purpose.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy,
Yes.
Mr. Stoller,
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I would like to present an ordinance entitled Ordinance 2680-24, ordinance amending and supplementing the Township of Milburn Development Regulations and Zoning Ordinance. Mr. McDonald, do you mind?
Again, this was previously discussed at the Township Committee on May 21st. regarding the process for designation of historic properties or districts. There are several revisions within the ordinance. This will be further discussed at the public hearing with the planner, but some key highlights in it are just that the timeframe is changed from 60 days to 35 days for the planning board to review, that they're spelled out a protest provision for those areas put forth for designation, and that that then it is put consistent throughout the ordinance as well. This will be again discussed with the township planner in attendance at the July 16th meeting, should this pass on first reading.
I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with law in the item and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, July 16th, 2024. May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Coleman.
Yes.
Ms. Purvis.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sedermelli.
Abstain.
Mr. Stoller.
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano.
Yes. Deputy Mayor Sacramento, you are scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2674-24.
I present for consideration an ordinance entitled Ordinance 2674-24, ordinance amending and supplementing the Township of Milburn Development Regulations and Zoning Ordinance. Tonight is the time set for public hearing and final passage as advertised in accordance with law.
I declare the hearing open.
Give me a second. Again, my name is Jeffrey Feld. Section. It's just some questions of maybe explanation as to why we changed certain definitions, such as the basement. If I look at the garage, I don't know if we really want to do one of the prohibitions in here, because it sort of bans grandparent suites, which is a growing way to resolve the affordable housing issue, that you convert the garages for the grandparents, because you're preventing that in your new definition. Also, can someone explain to us why we changed the definition of public use? It seems to be more broader now to incorporate the paper mill. Because before it was the use of land by a municipal, county, state, or federal agency or authority. That's being deleted. You have now a more expansive definition to include agencies as used herein shall be deemed to include not-for-profit corporations under lease or contract with the municipality to perform services deemed to accomplish public purpose. I'd just like to know why you've got such a more expansive use of public use, because that goes back to the paper mill issues that we're having. Then also surfacing parking lot. And the reason I mention this, it seems to now allow containing use of solar panels to generate electricity while sheltering automobiles shall be permitted so long as the size of the parking space are open to the elements. The reason I mention that, it seems to have been another hiccup in local land use with St. Rose. They started construction and doing it. I guess it got shut down. There was add-on to the zoning board to have approval of it. It was postponed. I mean, I'm not against allowing it to do it, but it's a question of, in the first place, how did they start digging holes to put footings in if they knew they had to go to the land use problem? The reason I say that, because last night I attended the Board of Education meeting, then I came to the zoning board, and I see some other neighbors there, and I asked them why they're there. They said, well, another neighbor started construction and they got notice of this. And I think there's been a problem now with our land use. The permits and things are happening without enforcement. And I think we need to look into this. I just bring out to understand why certain of these changes are happening. Some of them look like after the fact to cover up something or cure a problem that existed. Thank you.
I want to respond to the garage, and then I want to respond to the general zoning. It seems like I'm late to the game, I think, but it seems like the way you guys are clamping on certain of the zones, and I understood R7 is really being hurt very badly from that. I really think you should you take R7 out of this, because if you do garage 13 feet wide for a house that is 16 foot or 15 foot wide, there won't be any front door in that house. It has to be all the way from this side. It will look horrible and terrible. That's one thing. Plus garages, they're only more than 20 feet long. There's almost no car except the truck that is more than 20 feet long. So one thing I would say, take R7 out, because R7 also use, if it doesn't use, let's say the attic for that 7-footer issue, 6 versus 7-footer, you're talking about 2-bedroom homes. Builders are not gonna come in. They're not going to, I mean, I live downtown, I live in R7, and I'm also a builder. They're not going to spend the money, it's private capital, and the place is gonna stay dilapidated for years. The R7 should be carved out from that zoning decision, both on those two different numbers, the 79 and the 74. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sir, could we just have your name?
Ilan Bitan, resident of downtown Milford.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I move that this public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on final reading, and that the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on final reading in accordance with law.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Clupis?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Second
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Old business. Deputy Mayor and Committeeman Krupas, you wanted to speak on the Citizen Crime Public Safety Advisory Committee.
Yes. Committeewoman Prupus and I spoke on a few different occasions. And we also collaborated with a resident who happens to be a licensed clinical social worker about this committee. There were a lot of great ideas. And we actually circulated a draft ordinance to Mr. McDonald. Mr. McDonald wanted to follow up and have some conversations directly with the police chief to make sure they were comfortable with some of the purposes and goals of the committee. I can just share a quick high-level overview. The purpose of the committee is to enhance public safety and community well-being through collaborative, transparent, and data-driven approaches. The Crime and Public Safety Advisory Board should serve as an advisory body to the Township Committee and the Chief of Police, providing recommendations on public safety policies, resource allocation, community policing, and community engagement initiatives. We anticipate that this committee would have one member from each of the 5 elementary school districts in town. And then we had also proposed that there be 2 members at large that'll serve as the chairs of the committee, one from Milburn, one from Short Hills. The idea is we want to get equal representation from all parts of town. And then once the committee's formed, I expect they'll form various subcommittees. Some of the high-level ideas that were suggested as responsibilities and duties would be to have a subcommittee that regularly reviews and analyzes crime data and community safety perceptions. That way they can try and understand, if the community feels unsafe, why do they feel unsafe? What specifically is driving that feeling? Because if we have that data, then that can be reported to the police department and the township. And, if there's something that can be done to resolve that, that can be done. But understanding is the first step we need to take. Second would be to develop and propose data-driven policy recommendations to the Township Committee and the Chief of Police. Advocate for necessary policy changes at local, county, and state levels. So there might be a subcommittee that maybe does outreach or letter writing drives so that members of the community can contact state level officials to try and get policy changes and changes in legislation. Organize and facilitate community engagement activities, including town hall meetings, and public forums. So there could maybe be more of these community meetings, and this committee could take the role of organizing those to take some of the burden off of the police department. And finally, develop educational materials and campaigns to increase awareness of public safety issues. So these were just some of the examples that we had come up with. And I believe the way we left it is Mr. McDonald's gonna have the conversations with the police chief, and then we're gonna be able to discuss in closed session with the police chief some of these ideas, and then we'll sort of take it from there if the rest of the committee is comfortable with it.
I would just make a suggestion. There seems to be, from what you said, some overlap between this one and the pedestrian safety committee. And one way to, and they have different, there's some overlap in a Venn diagram. I would recommend that one of the other members of this committee be a liaison from that committee. So that they, that they, maybe vice versa, going back the other way. So that they're not going off in two different opposing directions.
That's a great idea.
And then members of the community policing.
Oh, yes.
Would be the police representation.
Yeah, and there'd be
with the
two
committee.
TC member liaisons as well, as we have committees sometimes.
Alex, were you able to share any of that? Will you- will-
I shared it, but I had to discuss it.
Right, but will you have discussion with him prior to our closed session on Tuesday?
Yep.
So, and will you be able to let us know that so we can make the edits before giving it to the rest of the TC members before Tuesday? Great.
To be clear, that's the next Tuesday we have a meeting, right?
Oh,
Not
right,
next week.
perfect, not next Tuesday. Oh, great, so we have some time, great. So we can just get that out to the three of you and then we'll have something to talk about in closed session.
Thank you.
One more thing to talk
That's
about.
a-
One more thing.
Thank you. Okay, Deputy Mayor, Citizen Budget Advisory Committee, new business.
Sure, so this came up, a resident actually brought this up at a few of the past meetings, and it's something that has been on my to-do list. The idea is that there'd be a committee of residents. We have a lot of residents in town that have vast financial experience and probably could help. One of the things I think our town really needs to do is a long-term capital spending plan, looking out 5, 10, 15, maybe even 20 years. So the idea would be to involve residents in the community on the committee that could help, develop this plan. That in my mind would be its primary goal. And then a secondary goal could be to work with the CFO on, the budget. I think, the budget generally, from what I understand, they take, all of the salaries and the compensation that has to go to the officials, and then they add in all the costs and what's projected. So there might not be a lot of wiggle room there, but it would just be a way for the community to have representatives that are a little bit more tied into that process and able to voice their concerns. But again, the primary goal would be to do that long-term plan. As with all the committees that we've started this year, I would ideally like it to be staffed with residents from each of the 5 districts we have in town. And then, perhaps 1 or 2 TC liaisons, and then, if the CFO was willing to be involved, that would be great. If not, then we'll have to discuss that.
Have you spoken to Matt about this committee yet?
So actually, at an initial meeting after Ben and I were elected, we actually did bring this up, and I believe Matt's response was, I love talking about the budget, so he did not seem opposed to the idea. We can certainly circle back with him again, but I doubt his will change between then and now.
But maybe we can just get some input. Okay.
Sure.
Anyone have any comment?
Committee.
I guess we already have the finance committee, so those people, that would be the TC liaisons, right? I mean, that's. We have 2 people, Ben and I would be.
They could be.
I mean, it should be, otherwise
So,
there's
is
a
it-
disconnect there.
Yeah, I think there should be, it should be the TC people, makes sense.
If both of you wanted to do it, I know Mr. Stoller's on.
I'm not sure what the difference is, but at that point, it's not clear to me
Well, the
why
diff-
you would have 2 different committees.
Because our town has not done any long-term capital planning that's been disseminated in a public way. And I think that this committee could help develop those long-term capital plans. That way, TC members turnover, right? Every year, there's a change in TC membership. What we want to do is have a long-term capital plan so that when the local governing body changes, you still have some continuity in terms of, okay, well, we know that these are infrastructure projects that are gonna have to get done eventually. Where do we think those should fit in with, regards to other big projects we have?
Aren't Matt and Alex the
Right, I think Alex
continuity?
has that.
Yeah, that's the continuity. Obviously, nobody's
One
thinking
would hope,
free the
but
slaves, but we do expect that Matt and Alex will be around.
I've yet to see a long-term capital spending
No,
plan
I'm
that
just
goes out
talking
20
about the
years.
continuity that you're concerned about.
Can I just
Go
make
ahead,
a comment? So if the goal of the committee is a long-term capital plan, I think those that were in attendance, the few that were in attendance at the budget session that we held between the introduction and the adoption, I committed to the individual who keeps bringing up the long-term cap that we would do that, and that I thought it was important. Actually have already started that process internally. I think that I just like to caution against sort of like creating committees for everything. If this is a project that we want the community to work on, I think that's great. And perhaps bringing the community together to work on this particular project rather than creating an entire committee that ends up in terms of a budget, right? We work with the two members of the township committee. We present to the township committee as a whole. It's the budget for running the governance of the town. And from a capital perspective, I agree. Like having long-term capital plans and making sure that the community is involved in that and understanding of that. But just create a committee then that may have to meet monthly or quarterly and the education process that goes into teaching municipal budget opposed to finance, which is completely different. I'm just want to provide some caution on that, and that I'd already committed to the public at that meeting that we would create this long-term capital plan, so that, to your point, which I think is very valid, that there's continuity beyond the township committee, beyond me, beyond Matt, that people understand what the needs of this community going forward are in terms of building infrastructure, road infrastructure, sewer infrastructure, all of those things that can be big ticket items. But just creating a committee that again, we talked about already, we have two more committees that we've created this year. I mean, there's going to be a sense of yeah.
So I think if you'd be willing to have some public sessions with yourself and the CFO and invite the public to come participate in that long-term capital planning, then that might possibly negate the need for the committee. It'd be great if we had some semblance of a timeline, 2 months, 3 months, like when do we expect to start to have some of those meetings?
So I think we're going to take the summer to do this and at least get the framework around it. And then be able to come out in the fall and start meeting, because obviously over the summer we start doing with public engagement, it becomes a little bit more difficult. But we're going to take the summer and be able to put this framework together and then have it so that we can put the pieces in as it comes up with those public discussions as well. So people can have an understanding of sort of what we have from a departmental standpoint, which isn't those very big ticket items, but certainly there's something that adds to the overall expense from a capital standpoint. And then these very big, or larger ticket items that are going to be buildings, whether it's, river walk, things like that have been talked about in downtown visioning plans or master plans and things like that all kind of go into that, so that there can be discussion with the public about what even the public's priorities are when it comes to that kind of stuff.
So maybe we could do the first public meeting in September.
Yeah.
Yes, let's do that.
Do you need anything in order to get that prepared for September? Do you need any other resources other than you and Matt?
Well, so we also have Acacia, who we've utilized that can help at least put some general numbers together in terms of financing, in terms of interest rates or expected interest rates, things like that can provide some of that long-term planning from a number standpoint. That will be of assistance to Matt. But we've also got an intern that's going to be able to help put sort of some of that storybook aspect together, take pictures, make sure that we have some photographic evidence of what we're talking about, because most people won't know if I say, hey, we've got $1 million project that is going to be needed at the Hilton Pump Station because it hasn't been updated since the 1950s. I don't know how many people will be able to tell me where the Hilton Pump Station is, right? So we can take a photo that let people know where that is and have a better understanding of it.
So.
And I'll just say, and I'm sure Ben would agree that since we are the finance committee, whatever help you, I certainly would be more than happy to do over the summer.
Great.
Great.
I'm gonna be traveling.
So
Great.
now,
I'm going to Israel.
Okay, Committeeman Stoller, you want to talk about Charter Study Commission?
Sure, the Charter Study Commission, this is really on the back of the 65% voters that backed Frank and myself. You know, the presidents of national party affiliations has often led to division among residents and hindered the progress of our community. So I believe the need for a nonpartisan government form in Millburn has become increasingly apparent. As elected officials who ran on this platform, we want to eliminate the constraints of the two-party system, understanding the importance of ensuring that qualified professionals, unencumbered by political ambitions and such, have the opportunity to participate in local governance. The current political landscape in Millburn, New Jersey, and all of New Jersey for that matter, is characterized by partisan strife, ideological polarization, and a focus on party interest over the needs of the residents and the people in the community. The divisive environment not only hampers the effectiveness of local government, but also undermines the trust and unity that are essential for a thriving community. By introducing a charter study for a nonpartisan form of government, we aim to create a more inclusive and collaborative governance structure that prioritizes the best interest of all residents. This initiative will hopefully provide a platform for individuals with diverse backgrounds, expertise, and perspectives to contribute to the decision-making process, free from any constraints of any party politics. Ultimately, our goal is to cultivate a political environment in which the focus remains on local solutions for local challenges, fostering transparency and accountability, and promoting unity within our community. A charter study for nonpartisan politics involves a comprehensive review and potential revision of the municipality's governing document known as the charter to establish a nonpartisan form of government. Some key components that I believe should be looked at are form of government, outline the proposed form of government for our municipality, elections and candidate qualifications, campaign finance and ethics, appointment of officials and boards, and public participation in governance and engagement. And also come together with a transition plan for implementing these changes as required. Overall, a charter study for nonpartisan politics, I believe, will create a more inclusive, transparent, and effective system of governance in our township. So I can open it to any questions.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly agree. You and I ran on a platform of encouraging the town to move to nonpartisan local elections. It's something that many other towns in New Jersey have done quite successfully. And it's my understanding that in order to move forward with the Charter Commission study, I believe we need 4 votes. So I would vote for it. Go down the line if you'd like.
Is that correct? Or is it 3 votes?
Sir Attorney.
I'd have to check that to be sure. I wasn't.
Okay, let's just wait, please. We'll have to find out, okay?
Yeah.
Does anybody have any comments?
Yeah, I would vote for it. So that's 3 right there.
That's 3, I'd vote for myself.
Yeah. So I guess let's.
And I think there's a lot of stuff going on in terms of, you know, the elections with the loss of the line on the Democratic side. I'm sure that's coming on the Republican side as well. And I think you'll get that you know, increased level of participation. My concern with nonpartisan, as I've said before, is without a primary system, you very easily could end up with, for 2 seats, if it's still 2 seats, you know, you could end up with 10 people running for 2 seats, and the person that wins certainly has no mandate. You know, if everything is close, I can't do the math in my head right now, but it would be a very small percentage of the vote. And as far as I also think, no matter how we all got here, and you know, whatever we came from different paths, this year with our multi-party township committee, we have all managed to get along and work together and put the interests of the town forward. And so I'm comfortable with the way that things are, and I don't think that it needs to change. So you do not have my vote.
I agree with Committeeman Cohen with block voting, everything is changing. And I also want to see how the Conforti case plays out. I'm also not sure that the taxpayers want to pay for 2 elections. So that's another concern of mine, because there would be most likely a election in the spring and then the general in November.
No.
It could be, excuse me, I'm speaking.
You cut us off all the time.
No, I don't. Excuse me. And additionally, partisan or nonpartisan elections, party politics will always exist.
Now, just a little bit of a rebuttal. I'm asking for a charter study, which will look at what exists today, the benefits, the advantages, the disadvantages, look at the current climate, and look at we haven't had a study done since when, Alex? Since 1970. So I believe moving that forward, just to commission the study, let a study be done and look at their assessment of where we are today. I don't think can hurt anything, and it's really 65% of the population voted for Frank and I, with that as one of our main pillars, along with crime and sensible development. So I think it would be a disservice to the constituents of this town, the residents who pay the taxes, and we're here to support.
The other thing is that we're only voting on starting a study that would then have to go to the voters to vote whether or not they want to make the town go independent or change the form of government. So we're not deciding anything here except to give the option to the voters. So that's it.
Correct. Okay.
So and if that's 3 votes, that's 3 votes.
Okay.
And we can start that process of the commission.
Okay.
So it is 3 votes?
Well, no, so let's,
No, I meant like if it is 3 votes,
We'll
then
have
we
to
have
find
3
out and
votes.
revisit it.
Okay.
And that means
Okay.
that.
Well, I just wanted to get it introduced to new business.
so
Yeah, we'll
maybe
find out and revisit.
Mr. McDonald can ask Jared to look into it and find out whether it requires 3 or 4 votes, and if it requires 3 votes, let's get it on the agenda for next
Yeah,
week.
because you think we're just voting for doing the charter study, taking that study and making it available to the public at large and letting them have a voice.
I guess Jared will, or Mr. Cantor will guide us through this whole, the process of it, because it must be a very formal process of what a charter study commission is.
You may consider special counsel that has experience with us.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, this is so exciting.
Sounds good. Okay, public comment. The public comment period is to allow for final comments with from the community. When invited to speak to offer your comments, please come to the lectern, clearly state your name and whether you are a Millburn resident and/or property or business owner. Please do not provide your full address, seeing our meetings are recorded and readily available to the public. A reminder that in order to help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers shall limit their comments to 1 3-minute session.
Just to acknowledge, I stood here, Charles Bambara, 27-year resident of Short Hills. I stood here a month ago and stated that I had made some comments and suggestions and lacked response. I'm happy to report, and to their credit, Alex responded to me the very next day and went over all the issues, and we're now moving forward with progressing all of those ideas. Nick Romano also contacted me from the Recreation Commission about the option of heating the township swimming pool with solar energy for free. And we're moving forward on that. So thank you, Alex, and thank you, Nick, for responding to me. And hopefully we can move forward with some of those thoughts. Thank you.
Jay Morelli, Township resident. First off, thank all committee members for what you do for our community. It is a very tough job, and speaking for myself, I really appreciate everything you guys do up here. Thank you for support in gun violence awareness event proclamation. This is the 7th year. Thank you for lighting the town hall up. It's really fantastic, and we want to thank you for support. Thank you for the introduction of the commission study. If you want a recommendation on a lawyer, I recommend Michael Collins. He was the legal representative on the Red Bank Charter Commission. You can watch the videos. I spoke with Michael and asked him the specific question on how many votes you needed. He told me unequivocally it was 3. If you read the Faulkner Act, there's no mention of a supermajority in the Faulkner Act. He said it's covered by common law and it requires 3 votes. It's actually a more involved process. As I understand it, not only does the Charter Commission need to be formed, but they have to run in an election to be appointed as charter commissions. So you first need an election to say we want to have a study. Once the Township Committee votes for it, the commissioners need to be elected by vote. That then begins a 9-month study, of which comes out of it a recommendation. So Mayor Romano, to your point, if the residents wish not to pay for a charter commission study, they can vote to say we don't want it at whatever next election. Now, I don't know if there's time to get that into this November election or not. That's something, if you're really interested in moving forward, you have to move forward quickly. So thank you, and I think it's a great idea. I like it because it lets the people of the town decide whether or not they want to consider a different form of government, not the people on the dais. So that's my thoughts on the subject. So thank you.
Jeff Feld, I echo what Jay just said, but it's also, there's 2 other issues that could be added to the charter study. One would be ranked voting, which is a new issue that's coming up, and giving the people the right of initiative and referendum is another issue. As to the budget, I hear about the input. One of the issues that came up, or what request from last Thursday, was like an organization table, just like, not just only for like the police department, but for just City Hall, like who reports to whom, oversight, such as like over land use, who's the ultimate decision maker there. Also, because last Thursday, after the meeting, I went back and I started comparing certain statements as to what we have in the police department and actually what was said in the user-friendly budget. There is discrepancies between demanding areas. Please be tough with fair share housing, Mr. Banish. We offer my assistance in fighting them. The reason we got it was posted on the website from some of us. The court, had access to it. We were told this afternoon. Go back to Jared, tell him to look at an opinion issued by Judge Sabatino again today, his panel, talking about the implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing. This is an argument I've been making since the first day, that this township, by not telling the citizens the terms prior to consideration official action, violated the implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing. And I've been pressing that issue. I'm pressing that issue in the current appeal. Also, I think it's very important that Mr. Cantor, because I've never seen on his time summaries, that he ordered the transcripts from the September 2021 first case management conference and the January 2022 fair share housing conference, by where myself and David Cosgrove were prohibited from asking questions of the special master and McManus. Did that. As to the issue of the criminal complaint, I want every fair disclosure. I represent Ms. Pasternak pro bono. A municipal court judge did her own investigation and she found no evidence that there ever was a court hearing by the presiding judge. I made open requests, there's no request. It was interesting when the summons got issued, had a return date back in Milburn. If you had a conflict, why was the summons issued? There's never been able to find out how it went from Milburn to Newark back to Milburn to get a summons. Finally, cosmic irony. Last Thursday, the Supreme Court, an opinion involving the NRA talked about political free speech and how government cannot suppress it. And then today, we have a trial beginning with Hunter Biden about his getting a gun under improper statements. And I don't know how you make that up. I'm not a writer.
It's Carol Kirsch, Wyoming section. I wanted to thank the committee and the county for the amazingly rapid response to the concerns that I and others had about the safety issues on Wyoming Avenue. Since the time it was brought up, we have crosswalks on almost every block, and just in the last day, beautiful, very bright signs. And I think there's also something closer to the school. So it's frankly the way I wish it had been 35 years ago when my kids went there, but I'm sure there's a lot of happy Wyoming parents who are worried about getting their kids to school. Thank you.
Jean Pasternak, resident. I just want to say to Alex, this isn't personal. It's about process and people having confidence in the system. And I think an independent way of looking at this would help everybody feel confident that the process was followed. So I know I would appreciate that. And I think it speaks on behalf of any resident that would be in the same position. As far as the Citizens Budget Advisory Committee, I have to disagree with you, Mr. Cohen. I understand that you don't want more complication, but I think at the expense of transparency, accountability, that this actually is a good idea. There are other towns that do it, have done it for many, many years. It has been successful. I'd be more than happy to do some research on that and give that to you. I think we don't need to be defensive. It's meant to be a support to the CFO, the BA, the Finance Committee. These are sometimes very long-term kinds of research projects that have to be done when you're doing strategic planning and long-term planning. It's asking a lot of people to put aside their day-to-day to do that kind of work. I know the Board of Education undertook a long project doing strategic planning. I would say it was a bit hijacked by the administration, but I think it was still a process that they put in place. And I think that that's something that could really benefit our town. We're looking to bring resident input into determining priorities that our taxpayers and citizens have in terms of spending their own tax dollars for the long-term good of the town. I can't understand why that would ever be a bad thing. So, and I don't think that's what you said. I don't mean to imply that, but I think that there is a certain process that can be embraced, and it just brings more accountability and transparency. As far as the nonpartisan, I know some people believe, that this does anyway end up being partisan, but I really think it gives our voters a chance to look at what the options are. And I personally think it's a good idea. I think that that the attempt to bring politics into, say, the school board, I don't think that was successful. I think that's actually a really bad thing. And I hope that we can at least be adult enough to say, let's go and have a look. As far as historic preservation, Mr. Elefante spoke. I understand that he's very involved with the High Center and the people involved in, the litigation and things that are going on that affect our town. I really think that the Historic Preservation Committee is doing very constructive and very helpful work. Putting this committee under severe criticism, I think, is counterproductive. It's gotten personal and it's hurting our township, and I think it should stop. The last thing I wanted to say is the code enforcement. I hope we're keeping up the pressure on that, because I know my being a pain in the ass about the Citizens Budget Advisory has gotten us somewhere. So I'll keep bringing it up. Thank you.
Good evening, Jerry Kung, Short Hills resident. I wanted to thank Committeeman Stoller for bringing up the idea of nonpartisan. I think it's a great idea. And given Mr. Stoller and Mr. Saccomandi won by a sizable mandate, I think everyone on the Township Committee ought to at least consider this. I want to thank Committeeman Cohen for bringing up the idea of a lack of a mandate. I think this is an important issue. As part of the Charter Commission study, I think that maybe one thing that could be looked at is ranked choice voting. So that could potentially address the 10 people running and someone winning with 12% of the vote. So there are a lot of interesting ways to, fix some of the concerns. I know Mayor Romano mentioned having 2 elections, May versus November. It's certainly possible to have November elections in a nonpartisan form of government. So I think, at the end of the day, I think what we really should think about is what the residents of our town want versus, what any political party wants, what any political machine wants. So I think that it's just important for us to actually give residents the opportunity to think through, what actually makes sense for our town from a governance perspective. And, you're not actually voting on, yes, let's just change the government today. You're voting on, let's form a commission that can study all of these issues that people have concerns about. At the end of the day, if we can't find a suitable form of government that actually is going to be, better for the residents of Milburn, then maybe we stick with what we currently have, but it doesn't hurt to actually consider all of our options. As for Mr. Moriali, thank you for all of what you've done in terms of putting information out to the public for nonpartisan. I think you outlined the process almost exactly, except I think that in 2019, the state changed from being a majority to a supermajority. So this was just an article that I found. Certainly, I'm not licensed to practice law in the state of New Jersey, so I'm not going to give any recommendations. But if indeed it is a supermajority that's required, I would hope that Committeeman Cohen and Mayor Romano consider to give residents a voice in terms of forming a charter commission. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Jonathan Baxter, Farbrook Drive, Short Hills. This is just going to be very quick. I got a message that the consideration of the town dump site as at least going ahead according to the special master. I wasn't at the meeting. I had my daughter's concert, so I just wanted to reiterate. I wrote a letter to the judge well before Frank and Ben were elected, back when the issue was first flaring up, expressing my concerns about that site, and I just wanted to reiterate here my concerns about that site today. I mean, the biggest issue at the time in the town, and kind of a big reason behind Frank and Ben getting elected with such big majorities, was that the whole thing was negotiated in secret, agreed upon in secret, voted on in secret, and presented as a fait accompli to all residents, and felt a lot like living in a one-party state. And that's not going very well at the moment. So a lot of people had issue with the development. I won't go into all the details here now, but it's 100% affordable housing. I did have a conversation with the mayor at the time, Maggie Miggins, about this, and she said that Fair Share Housing Commission had insisted upon the dump site from the outset, that it was, Alex McDonald was at the meeting too, so he can verify this, that they insisted on it from the outset. It was never up for negotiation. The town was never able to give any input on the consideration of that site, and nobody ever even tried to push back on it during the course of negotiations. So given what's happened since, given the fact that the town has expressed such strong views about this, and that we don't want this, it's not that we're against affordable housing, but we're against this very, very bad idea for affordable housing. And I'll reiterate the litigation issues with this. You know, down the road, some enterprising lawyer is going to come in whenever anybody gets sick on that site, and they will file a lawsuit. I don't know whether they'll be successful or not, but you know, as they say, you can indict a ham sandwich. They can get up. You can find a jury who says, "Hey, they're all rich; they can afford to pay," and you know, it'll just cost the town money that it's just unnecessary. So, I think at this point we need to continue to push back on this. We need to keep fighting against this. I don't think we should give in. And I thank everybody's efforts for that, especially Frank and Ben. So just wanted to come here and reiterate my pretty well complete opposition to this project. Thank you.
Keep it simple, Christine Best, you all know me, Milburn Township. I just standing in front of you, I'm not gonna really say a lot, but I just definitely hope that you guys can push back if you can on the site for affordable housing going at the town dump. I totally disagree with it and basically concur with what was stated by the gentleman before. So I don't need to reiterate all the things that he said. And then I also, I apologize, I was not at the meeting earlier. I had business to do at the library, but I did have a question for you, Alex. You might have stated this in the initial thing, so I apologize if you did already. I would like to understand, in my neighborhood at Fairfield. I know that you guys were very polite, and thank you so much for giving me an update as to the status on JCP&L and why, I clearly am very clear as to why Fairfield Drive is not being repaved at this time. But what I'm trying to understand is why Martindale and Fairfield Terrace are not being repaved unless the conduit from Fairfield Drive extends into that. So I would like some clarification. If you already spoke to it, then I will go back and review the tape. And also while we're all waiting, because it seems like we might even have another year of this, and I don't know what happened to that girl that fell on her face and broke her nose. But I constantly twist my ankle. You know how you twist your ankle just a little bit and you didn't blow it out? I don't really want to do that, it's really bad. I tell people to drive down our road, and now what's happening is, how like when things look bad, then people just throw trash, or landscapers are now just leaving their debris all over because there's so much debris from what Sfelli and Sons did. It's really, at the bottom, it's all clogged up. So I really just hope that the town could clean stuff up. I really do feel like since the DPW has been charged by a forester, that maybe that's an operational position that really should be charged by somebody who has DPW experience, because I'm seeing a lot of issues just around town with just weeds, trash everywhere. That's my personal opinion. It's really going downhill. So I just wanted to comment on that. And that's all I have to say tonight. I hope it didn't offend anybody. And thank you so much for everything you guys did. Okay.
Good evening, Mike Stotts, Executive Director of Paper Mill, the very nonpartisan, non-political Paper Mill. And I just came here really with the PSA. Next Tuesday, we're gonna have 1,200 students from across the state for the Rising Star Awards. This is the equivalent of the Tony Awards for high school musicals. We have 120 applicants from schools from every county in the state. And the top of the top, the cream of the crop, will be performing on the Paper Mill stage and receiving the equivalent of their Tony Awards next Tuesday. So I invite you all to stop by, because you will never see a more meaningful group activity happening on our campus. Second thing, Gatsby, Great Gatsby is open on Broadway. We should all take enormous pride in that. Paper Mill and our staff and our board certainly do. But this has been a rough year on Broadway, and before assumptions are made about money being made, in the Great Gatsby, our royalty is $1,000 a week. So it's not like this is going to be the grand savior. And finally, we start performances of Beautiful, the Carole King musical, tomorrow night. We've extended it through July 3rd. Sales are going extremely well. So starting tomorrow night, I think you'll see the restaurants full again. So thank you again. Thank you. Yeah.
Hi, Perry Urso again, Upper Milburn Avenue business owner. So I understand that you can't talk about the Bear property litigations and you can't answer those questions. So perhaps you can answer, why does the township need a SID? What is the real reason behind the SID? It is to my understanding that there is a functioning chambers of commerce for years. Like I asked in 2020, when I first learned about the SID at the height of COVID, under the watch of the current chair, SID board chair, who chastised this body at the last TC meeting for their lack of transparency. That is beyond hypocritical. Why the SID instead of the township utilizing an existing entity, which appears that both entities are competing with one another? Would it be considered a conflict that the SID executive director is an active city board member of the chamber? I highly recommend this body visit Chatham and take a page from their playbook, for they do not have a SID. However, the town works closely with their chambers in every single piece of government. Chatham is vibrant. Businesses are well diverse. I believe there also is no parking fees. The streetscape is absolutely inviting. Lastly, as a responsible business owner and landlord, here are a few things that I feel that's a benefit of the SID. Number one, taxation without representation. Number two, unnecessary legal fees. Number three, irresponsible use of taxpayer trust fund monies, using 4 districts to subsidize one district known as the downtown. Number 4, loss of garbage service without a reduction in taxes. Number 5, irresponsible use of taxpayer trust fund monies for the use of 60% of the collected assessments for administrative salaries. And lastly, let me not forget the latest crying, laughing mermaid who is representing the business districts of Millburn Short Hills. The video not only was offensive, it was embarrassing. This individual also was reaching beyond the scope of their contract by seeking a level of code enforcement badge, which would allow them to have authority and control over private property. In the event that this video I'm referring to is removed from Facebook because it was posted by the CID, a public entity would be subject to Oprah. Thank you and have a nice evening.
Thank you. May I have a motion to close public comment?
I think we have to close
gonna
public comment first.
Close it first, right? All in favor? Okay, anyone want to respond?
Do you want to go first?
The little levity of seeing Steve Grillo in a mermaid suit was a riot. To Mr. Baxter, we addressed what we felt about the affordable housing. So if you go watch that first part, you'll glean a lot of information from it. We were pretty blunt and fully agree with you. And the liability of in the future, I forgot who mentioned that. I think you mentioned it is, who knows where that will stretch. Ms. Kirsch, I noticed the new walkways as well. They're beautiful, and the signs are very, very good. And I'll defer to our counsel for Mr. Khan and Mr. Morielli's comments to come back to us promptly with the correct structural and procedural methods of moving forward with the commission study. That's it. Thank you.
Committee covered?
I'm good.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes, so I'd like to thank the residents that pointed out that the Charter Commission study would indeed be a referendum on an existing ballot. So it's not like it would cost the town anything extra to have that referendum item. And I would implore the rest of the TC members that are not on board to consider the fact that anytime you give residents a choice via a referendum, how could that be a bad thing? To not give them a choice is really to suppress public desire and the public will. So I'd say you have nothing to be afraid of if you trust that nonpartisan local elections are not something that the public wants. Let's have it go to a referendum. What's the harm in that, right? Always better to give residents a choice when it's possible. Let's see, Ms. Urso, do townships need a SID? No, they don't. For some reason, our township at some point felt that they did need a SID. I think that circumstances have changed. I personally think that's something that should be reevaluated. I'm not sure that we still need a SID. I think now that vacancy rates are down and COVID is over and situation has changed quite a bit, I think the Chamber of Commerce can definitely fill in a lot of the areas that the SID professes to help. I think at this point, the SID is something that should go to a referendum. But I don't know if I have the support of the rest of the TC for that, so I'm only one voice. All right, thanks, everyone.
I have no remarks.
I just want to respond to a couple quick things. One is to Ms. Pasternak. First, I'd like to be clear that I did not name anybody in my comments. I did not want to do that. However, also, I did not take it personally. And this kind of also parlays into Ms. Best's comments and some of the things that have been said. You know, a lot has been said tonight about partisan politics and things like that and not wanting to treat people in a certain way, but we are very quick and I've said this before, I think last year, we were very quick to automatically assume corruption, cover up, and we are, assuming that something nefarious is going on and saying things vaguely like, the director of DPW, because he's a forester, everything's gone downhill. I don't think these are fair comments. And so I certainly want to say my piece about that, because one thing is I'm happy to continue to work with Ms. Pasternak and making sure that, we get some information and resolution to what you've gone through. If certainly if something nefarious was going on, I would not be willing to do that. And I want to get you an answer. I had mentioned in an email previously that perhaps having a discussion with the presiding judge who made the determination, while maybe didn't provide anything to you in an open request, would be a good route. I think at least the first next step, let's meet with our judge if he's able to. I've made that request to the court administrator. She's going to get back to me. Once I have that information, I'll reach out so that we can set up a meeting to do so. In terms of Ms. Best's inquiry about Fairfield Terrace and Martindale, yes. One of the issues is that the underground wire did sweep onto Martindale and Fairfield Terrace. As you know from living in the neighborhood, that the poles go down the middle of the properties from basically Fairfield Drive all the way down to Old Short Hills Road. So those wires did sweep. In addition, when PSE&G was doing their work, there was quite a bit of consternation in the neighborhood regarding curbs and drainage. So we are actively addressing that in the road reconstruction ordinance that was approved bid that was approved tonight to be able to do some curbing work and drainage work on Fairfield Terrace and Martindale, so that when PSE&G comes into mill and pave, it is a complete job. I had updated the community as a result of JCP&L being able to complete their work on Fairfield Drive, that our contractor will be in the area on Saturday to finish up curb work. Then their subcontractor, Cuneo, will be in on later part of next week or the beginning of the week of the 15th the 17th to complete their mill and pave of Fairfield Drive. And I think that is all I wanted to respond to.
Just that we'll follow up on the Charter Study Commission and give an answer to either Alex or, to transmit to the committee, or we could just transmit it to the committee.
Thank you. May I have a motion to adjourn?